A second U.S. appeals court has blocked the president's travel ban from 6 mostly Muslim nations. A 3-judge panel from the Ninth Circuit wrote, "Immigration, even for the president, is not a one-person show." Doug Burns is a criminal defense attorney and former federal prosecutor, and he joins me now. So, Doug, let's start with the very basics here. On what grounds did the Ninth Circuit rule against the Trump administration?
It's actually very interesting, and it's a little different than first meets the eye, seriously, because in law we have this principle that if you have a statutory analysis and a constitutional one, and you can decide the case without reaching the constitutional question, you do it. And that's what they did. They ruled under the Immigration and Naturalization Act, popularly referred to as the INA, and they didn't reach this question of religious discrimination. So that's interesting. The other thing that's really interesting, Elaine, is that they did not, repeat, did not cite or quote any statements or rhetoric that the president had used as a candidate. And that's actually very interesting, because to those of us in this business, that telegraphs that the court has its eye a little bit on the Supreme Court, because while this may come across political, it's not. Trust me, it's legal analysis. The point is that I'm not certain at all that campaign statements can be validly analyzed in terms of an executive order. You follow me? That's an open question.
So it wasn't campaign statements, but the ruling specifically cited President Trump's tweets on June 5th in its decision, as well as the fact that his tweets are quote-unquote official statements. Right. In Monday's press briefing, in fact, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer was asked about that. Let's take a listen.
Cases should be decided on the rule of law and on that. And when you look at when you look at what the law is in the U.S. Code that allows the president to do whatever he has to, that's what we were deciding on. And frankly, I think any lawyer worth their salt 100% agrees that the president is fully within his rights and his responsibilities to do what is necessary to protect the country.
Do you think that the president's tweets weakened his own case?
They might, yeah. But again, it may prove to be difficult in the Supreme Court, because I'm not so sure necessarily. I mean, look, it's interesting. When you have a statute, legislation, you can look at what legislators said when they were debating it, what we lawyers call legislative history. I'm not so sure that a tweet can be analogized with respect to an executive order to that. So the other point, real quick, that's interesting is that the Ninth Circuit did reverse the district court on this question of whether government agencies can, analyze the vetting process. So it's interesting. I mean, look, the case is headed for the Supreme Court. There's no question about that. You have the matter in the Fourth Circuit. Any lawyer is going to tell you that if you have multiple circuits, very often that's when the Supreme Court steps in to clear it up, obviously. And that's what's going to happen. And let me tell you something. I often say I don't have a crystal ball. You'd need one in this case, because it's going to be incredibly close, incredibly contentious. There are strong arguments all around for a variety of reasons. Things like standing, what we call, justiciability, all of that, not to get in the weeds. And it's going to be a real knockdown, drag-out Supreme Court case.
So, yeah, you say it's headed to the Supreme Court. How does that happen? What are the next steps here?
Well, basically what happens is that apparently the government has asked for what they call expedited review. Obviously, the word defines itself on a quicker timetable. And anytime, as I said earlier, when there's a conflict ostensibly between circuits, you say this is a case that has got to be reviewed in the Supreme Court. So, it'll follow the process, probably a little bit quicker. And then obviously briefs will be filed. And in a case like this, you're going to have what are called friend of the court briefs, amicus briefs, amici, plural. And the point is that you'll have those from umpteen organizations all over the place. And as I said, it's going to, and then they'll have oral argument, which will be fascinating. The U.S. Solicitor General, those for the plaintiffs in the original lawsuit, and then the court will decide it. And, as I said, I don't have a crystal ball, but it'll probably be 5-4.
All right. We will see. Doug Burns, thanks so much.
My pleasure.